opinions expressed by the host, callers, or guests are not those of DreamStreamRadio.com, JAL Media, its advertisers, sponsors, employees, volunteers, or affiliated companies. All content is owned by the presenter of each program and are bound by certain rules and regulations set forth by DreamStream Radio. Any contest aired on any program broadcast on DreamStream Radio are encompassed by the following rules. One winner per family per household. Employees and their immediate family members, volunteers, advertisers, or affiliated companies are not eligible to play or win. Participants are entitled to one prize every 30 days and agree to allow their voice and likeness to be used in any means of transmission for later station promotional broadcast. DreamStreamRadio.com.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Welcome to Mobanshi's Lair, rocking your world on DreamStreamRadio.com.
I want you all to listen to. I want to open it up, and this is I thought this was a cute little song, Under the Mellow Arabian Moon, with David Cronin, Cody Derricks, Jonah Mayer, Keith Anderson, and I think it's Ricky Schroeder. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy listening to it, okay?
Gentlemen, I'm going to give the audience a show that's topical, that's relevant, that's of the moment. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go! As my good friend Carol Channing once told me,
be careful what you set your heart upon, because you shall surely get it.
Sometimes life hands you exactly what you want.
My heart's in Arabia tonight, where stars shine bright on desert sand, where the moon sends blessings with its light from far above, oh land of love. Under the mellow Arabian moon, with an Arab maid in the desert shade, humming a sweet Arabian tune, Turkish melodies floating on the breeze, holding someone by the hand in that far-off desert land. Let me tell you, that's the way to spoon. Just get an Arab sweetheart under the mellow Arabian moon. Tell her pretty things to your wanderings, where cold December seems like June. You will be content in the Orient, you'll find lots of pleasure there. Love and music in the air, under the mellow Arabian moon.
Wait, stop the music, stop the music. I'm not sure I like these costumes. I happen to be of Arabic descent. I really am, and I cannot support a scene that perpetuates inaccurate, outdated Arabic stereotypes.
I don't like these costumes either.
You do not want to take part in a scene that deals in stereotypes.
Well, my thoughts weren't quite so complex. It just occurred to me we were wearing sheets. And I couldn't help remembering there were times when I was up in Danny's bedroom, and it seems to me that sometimes on his bed, Danny had sheets.
The memories, the associations, the reminders must be all so hard to bear.
Mr. Director, must we wear these costumes?
A good director listens to his actors.
Do you really think we're going to have a good show?
It's in the air, it's in the air. You can't stop it if it's in the air.
When the oriole high in the trees goes to its nest in search of rest, then my fancy journeys o'er the seas, through desert sand to Arab land. Under that mellow Arabian moon, with an Arab maid in the desert shade, humming a sweet Arabian tune, Turkish melodies floating on the breeze, holding someone by the hand in that far-off desert land. Let me tell you, that's the way to spoon. Just get an Arab sweetheart under that mellow Arabian moon. Say some pretty things to your wanderings, where cold December seems like June. You will be content in the Orient, you'll find lots of pleasure there. music in the air under that mellow Arabian moon.
I am over the moon tonight because that was the mellow Arabian moon, under the mellow Arabian moon, chipdeffaasmadabouttheboy Theater Boys. I think I said everybody that was singing in it: David Cronin, Cody Derricks, Jonah May, Keith Anderson, and Ricky Schroeder, right?
Right.
And we were talking in the beginning. Everybody, I want you to meet Chip Deffa. Chip, this is everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Thank you. You know, I do this like we're sitting at the kitchen table. I am drinking my cup of tea, and you're drinking whatever you'll have. And yes, and relaxed. And when you're talking about something you really enjoy, the time just flies. And I asked you during the while I was playing that song, who did Carol Channing's voice? And you said, go ahead.
Oh, well, on the Theater Boys cast album and in our show, we were lucky to have a little cameo appearance, a recorded appearance by Carol Channing herself. She's the greatest, musical comedy star I've ever seen on stage, or as great as anyone I've seen on stage. And she did us this kindness of recording a few lines, which we used on the album and in the show, and it meant more to us than I can explain. And
I'm sure.
She actually gave me the idea for that show. She planned, not intentionally. Some things she just said to me in conversation. She's been like a wonderful friend and taught me a lot. And some things she told me actually inspired me to write that show. So she became part of the storyline.
Yeah, you absolutely. It's charming, the song, and I love the way she does that little cameo in there. I've had people from the theater industry on, but you are so much more than that. You're a playwright. You do so much more. You're an author. But it's a hard way to make a living, and what made you go this way into theater and the arts the way you have?
Oh, I don't know. My dad's always sort of said, follow your heart and the money's going to find you, and do the things you love. I think he worked very hard all his life. He's up in his 90s now, and he stressed as we grew up, you got to find something you love and think about following the things you love as an individual more than worrying about what's going to bring in the money. And so these are all labors of love, whether I'm writing a play or writing a book or writing for a newspaper or producing an album. I've done cast albums for maybe a bunch of these shows that I've produced, and it's all great fun. And I wrote for the New York Post for 18 years, covering entertainment, jazz and cabaret and theater, and it's all good stuff.
The old saying, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes, it feels like that, yes.
Yeah.
Today I spent the day rehearsing with such a wonderful cast of people. We're going to do a show, Mad About the Boy, is going to open April 12th at the 13th Street Theater, and they're such wonderful actors to spend the time with. It's just I come back very happy because of their the energy and the company, and they're talented and bright, and it's nice to spend your day with people you like and who are creative. Okay,
so now that we've opened the box and Mad About the Boy, let me ask, how does something like this? I know nothing about acting. I took music, but I didn't get into the acting with the grease and all that. How does something like this get from I want to do a Mad About the Boy? How do you get it from paper to a playhouse?
It's a big question. I'll tell you something funny. One time I was out, I took a bunch of my friends out, and we were out swimming and having a day in the summer. And these were creative people. One was complaining he writes songs and no one was ever going to hear his songs because he couldn't get a producer to showcase him. Another guy was, writing a play and how would he get it ever produced. And another guy was, wanted his choreography to be shown off. And a gal was saying, she'd love to have her singing showcased, whatever. They're all grumbling how hard it is to be seen anyplace. And this is some years back, and I was at the time writing for the New York Post, and I had saved up some money, and I said, listen, I'm going to run a theater festival just so my friends can get exposure, and I'll rent some theaters on 42nd Street. I'll find a way so that whatever you do, if you're a comedian, I'll give you maybe 4 nights or 6 nights, and you can either do stand-up comedy or write a comedy and have actors in it, whatever you want. And I'll give you a night to showcase your choreography and give you a run to showcase this play you're writing on your songs. And I said, if I lose money, it's okay. It's I have some money saved up, and I'll just run this theater festival for my friends. And we put together a schedule with about 25 different productions in it for 6 weeks. It was going to run in a theater festival on 42nd Street. And then some of the friends got cold feet, and they started to drop out and say, the musical I'm writing won't be ready in time. Chip, you gave me like six Saturdays to do this on, and I can't do the show, so you got 6 Saturday nights to fill, and somebody else dropped out from the play he was writing and so on. And so what happened was I had this theater festival, I had these theaters booked, and I had to, and suddenly I had spaces in the calendar. So I started putting together shows just to fill the space, and some of the shows I threw together very quickly. I did the first version of my George M. Cohan show, and I did the first version of Mad About the Boy. I was presenting them and sort of producing them on the fly. And so we did those first ones in this crazy theater festival. I was producing 25 shows at once, and there was a handful of them that were my little babies. And so that's where that's part of what started. I took a little leave of absence from the New York Post, said I have to get this theater bug out of my system, and I didn't know what I was starting. And the next thing I knew, we tried out Mad About the Boy, and Tommy Toon came in to see, and he's won 9 Tony Awards, and he loved it and said, you got to do more with it. And all the encouragement I got from different people like that made me, say, I got to develop more of these projects. Now I'm at the 13th Street Theater, and there's a lady there who runs it, Edith O'Hara. She's 98, and she sort of gives me carte blanche to produce whatever I want there. So I did 4 different productions last year, Irving Berlin's America and Theater Boys and, Irving Berlin Ragtime Review and so on. So she won't even ask, what's your next thing? She just says, what do you want to do next? And if I say I want to do Mad About the Boy, they give me space and they give me time, and we rehearse it and put it up. And so it's a nice situation.
Theater, I think, is a little bit different. Maybe I'm wrong. As I say, I am not an actor, actress. I've never aspired to be. I'm not one of those kids, when I was little, I would think, someday I'm going to be an actress. It never, ever, I was more interested in blowing things up. And of course that's not allowed in every neighborhood, so you got to go to bases for that kind of stuff. But, it seems like it's a different kind of community in respect to, supporting each other in the theater than it is in movies. I think movies is a little bit more of a battleground for parts, where theater, it seems almost like everyone I've talked about said, I got support from these people, and this one supported me. And Tommy Toon came in, and I mean, who doesn't know Tommy Toon, And when you say, and he said, you got to do more, that's a lot of, pumping up, and that's a lot of support for somebody that's working on the fly.
I love these people. I'm so grateful. I can't thank them enough. Carol Channing has no idea how much help she's given me. In a casual conversation with her, I could learn more than I learned, 4 years of college. She's just a fount of knowledge on not just the theater, but on life. But every time I go into rehearsals or I run a a recording session, things she's told me are echoing in my head and giving me guidance, and her work ethic sets the example. She did, Hello Dolly on Broadway. She went out, you may not know this, or it wasn't generally known. She wound up doing that show about 5,000 times between the original Broadway run, the national tour, subsequent revivals and tours. And she never missed a performance. She was like, her understudies knew they didn't have to be at the theater because nothing was going to stop her from performing. And when she was out on that first national tour, only people very close to her knew it. On her day off, she was flying back. If the show was in Detroit or St. Louis or San Francisco, she'd be flying back to Sloan Kettering in New York, getting chemotherapy because she was battling cancer, ovarian cancer. The public didn't have a clue, and then she'd fly back, do her 8 shows a week, and be happy-go-lucky, Dolly Levi in the bright red dress.
Right.
And that sort of that sense that you don't let it stop you from living your life. That was a good example for me too. So over 20 years ago, I remember a very close friend of mine had died, and I told her I didn't feel like working at that point, and I just felt like just stopping everything. And she was like, no, you never stop the work. You use that energy. You do your best work when challenged, and you're going to do some of your very best work, even though it's the most difficult time to do it. And that's sort of, so I really love what she's done for me in my life. After this is over, I'll drop her a little note because she's always been helpful to me.
Ovarian cancer is the silent killer, and I had it, and they found it by accident, and praise God they did, or I would not be here, because when they found it, they said I probably would have had maybe 4 months left.
Right.
And I kept losing weight, and I was getting sick, so they went in, did surgery to just do some stuff, and bingo, they found it.
Right.
And the chemo is wicked on the body, so that's a trooper who can get up and do that and get up there. And I also remember a story of her, why she always wears the wigs now, because she was constantly getting her hair done every day, and she started losing her hair just from being washed so much and having so much done to her hair that finally she got a different hairdresser for some reason, and he said, I'm not touching your hair, it's breaking in my hands. And he's got her a wig, and she went with the wigs ever since then, because it is acting, it's demanding, it's physical, it's emotional. And then and I was talking about this the other week with another guest. You got to keep it real. How do you keep it new? How do you keep it fresh? So as Ian Sirian McKellen said, what we do is hard. He said, acting, when he was trying to describe it, he says, what we do is hard. And he's right.
But I've had such luck. I've had such wonderful actors to work with, and there are ones young and old who I would work with any time because they give their all. And in my last little show, the Irving Berlin Ragtime Review, the last show we did, our youngest actor, Jonah Barraclough, was about 12 or 13, and Emily Bordenero is another teenager, Michael Casper. They were the most reliable, dependable. They'd never be late. They'd come with a good attitude. And when we we're in the process still of making the cast album of that show, but I'd start my recording session with one of these young people because they would set a good example for the older ones. Like, they're not nervous, they're not fussy, they're not prima donnas. They're just going to go in, nail it, and so I look for those kind of people too, young and old. I'm really lucky. When I did last summer, I did Irving Berlin's America with Michael Townsend Wright and Giuseppe Basilio. Giuseppe at the time was in Newsies on Broadway. He had also starred in Billy Elliot on Broadway. Here he was doing Newsies 8 shows a week, and on his off nights, co-starring in my show. But these are the people I love that just, they're never going to let you down. They're not going to miss a performance, and they're not going to give anything less than their. Somebody else might have said, "Oh, I'm so busy. I've got this and that, and then yet it's the busiest people that make the time for you. Carol Channing. I always know I could always pick up the phone, and she's going to be there. And
right.
It's amazing, and yet you have and somebody like Tommy Tune. My God, these busy people will find the time to come to it, and then it's some of the other ones who are like, I don't know if I can do a play right now, and they're not going to have a career. The ones who are just so fussy and like, I have to wait till I have all the free time. Anyway.
Right. Michael Townsend Wright and I attended the same church. And when he told me he was an actor, I just kind of looked at him because he's so quiet, A
lot of actors off stage, they're maybe on stage, they're the extrovert and the ebullient one. And people assume that at a party or something, they're going to be the cut-up, and maybe they're the one quietly. They save that for the stage, and in life they may be quiet and self-effacing people that are just living their life and whatever it is, cutting the grass or doing all the things we normally do. You can't always tell.
Yeah, and he is a complete toss of the coin, the other side. And I just said, you're fooling me. You're having me on. And he says, no, I'm an actor. And this, we're going back 27
Absolutely.
years ago. And I'm looking at him saying, you're an actor. I can't get 2 words out of you at a meeting. You're an actor.
And yet he's done burlesque comedy. He's done TV. He was
his Jack
regular
Benny.
on the Floyd show. He was in movies.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of shows with me and albums. And again, I have almost like a repertory company of actors that I will turn to again and again because they're never going to let you down. They're never going to miss a rehearsal.
Right.
They're never going to miss a performance, and they're never going to give a bad performance. They're going to come through. Another actor, I mean, Michael's worked with these actors with me too, and he knows it. I had another actor, Matt Nardozzi. Now, he's done Broadway. He's done films. He's won the National Young Artist Award and stuff. I called him up and said, they live down in Florida. I said, you want to come up and do something with me and Michael, be in a play with us? I said, but the way it works is you're going to have to learn all the songs and dances and choreography on your own and then fly up here when you know it, basically, and we'll put it up very quickly. And I absolutely trusted when he said, yeah, that sounds good, that on his own he'd learn all the songs, all the 60-page script, all the songs, all the dialogue, the dances, and then fly up here, and with minimal rehearsal we'd go out and perform it. Because and he's he's a teenager, but I know some of these people. I just rely on them, like I do Michael. They're not going to let me down. They're not. There's an actor right now. He's doing my show, George M. Cohen, tonight in Florida. Right now, he's doing a 5-week run at a theater in Florida, the Broward Stage Door Theater, and this is the 3rd time we've been at the theater. But he's been doing this role for me for a decade or more, and he's another one that I know. He could be sick with this or that, and the audience won't know it. They'll just see a guy come out, sing, dance, tap dance all out, sing all out, and do this performance. And I know sometimes when we did that show off Broadway in New York, I know sometimes there were real health issues he was dealing with. The audience had no clue of it. They had no sign of it because once the light went up, that's a pro. You just go in and you forget about your problems and you're there to entertain the public,
Right. I have a face for radio and a voice for nothing. You asked me, how are you feeling today? And I said, right. I'm okay. The weather's beating me up pretty good, but the show must go on. Right. And I've promised these people I'm going to have a guest, and I never, ever, ever correlated what I do kind of with what Joe Franklin did, ever until Joe Franklin died. And I was watching a lot of clips and wiping my eyes because he hit on me when I was young, when I was in New York one time. Would you ladies like to come to have a cup of coffee or something? And my girlfriend says, well, actually, we're here with the school on a senior trip. And he said, have a nice day, ladies. I said, I think that's Joe Franklin. And my friend says, yeah, I think so. He says, and you would be right. And he started talking to us, but what a gentleman, what a nice man. And
he's befriended me since I was very young, too. I dedicated one of my books to him. I did his radio show and his TV show a million times. He never failed to come to see my shows. And Joe is another one. The kindness of this man. Every time I go into New York, I would stop in his little office there at 300 West 43rd Street, and he just great. In fact, the last time I had a party, I had people who were young and all ages, and there was Joe who was close to 90. He was as much fun at the party as any of the young people. So I'm sorry he's gone.
They're the greatest generation, and there's a reason for that. They are the greatest generation. My husband's older than me, and I'm not telling everybody how old I am, but there is a reason why these people are the greatest generation. They are incredible people. They never whined. They never complained. It was just do it and get it done. We were just talking about Michael Townsend, right? First, I want you to explain to everybody what Under the Marshmallow Arabian Moon comes from. That's the Chip DeFaas Theater Boys. We played that in the beginning.
Oh, well, Theater Boys was a show of mine it was about actors auditioning for a gay musical. I've done all kinds of different shows, and that's just a sort of a campy song. In that show, most of the songs I wrote myself, but that one's an old song from 1914 that I added to our mix, and our young cast had fun with it. But I liked bringing in that song just because it was. We just had fun clowning around with it. I have a love for these early songs that nobody else remembers from the teens or the 1920s and 30s, and if I can slip them into a show someplace, I will. So that's it's just a good story.
We have a number of pieces, and I want people to get a flavor for, because you are heavily influenced by what my definition of the golden age of theater is, and that would be Cohan, Noel Coward, Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, Harton, what's his name? These were incredible. The 20s and 30s and early 40s. You seem to be very heavily influenced by that kind of theater.
I was. It's a couple funny things. When I was a little kid, one of my best friends was a man. He was way up in his 80s. He was an ex-vaudevillian, and he would tell me stories about playing the Palace in 1913 and working. He'd take pictures out of his wallet, and there'd be a picture of him as a kid working with Gypsy Rose Lee and her sister back in the days when they were like child performers, and doing their newsboys act. And he had worked on bills with all these people, with Fanny Bryce, and he'd be telling me stories. And my swim coach had a connection. He had staged musicals staged the Aquacades for Billy Rose, Fanny Bryce's second husband. So I'd hear these stories growing up, and it made the old days seem very close to me. And in our basement, we had old 78s that belonged to my parents and to my grandparents and my uncles and aunts. And so that whole world of the past interested me. And to this day, I've done musicals about Fanny Bryce and George M. Cohan and Irving Berlin and Eddie Foy, different people from the early years of the beginning of American show business. And but even if I'm writing a brand new show, Theater Boys is a contemporary show set in the present, but the music I wrote for the show is so influenced by the old time stuff. The whole thing has like a vaudeville flavor to it, so it's fun. Then you have to find performers that like that, like get into that feel. Yeah.
Oh, George M. Cohan wrote a melodrama, The Seven Keys of Baldpate. It was based on a novel, and we all people from that have watched. Since then, in the 83, Desi Arnaz Jr. and all the horror greats, Christopher Lee, Cushing, Vincent Price, John Carradine, all got together and did a remake of it called The House of Long Shadows.
It's been remade countless times, actually, with different names and different people. I actually have. I'm looking at it right now. the silent movie that Cohan himself made of that film. It was a huge. The play was hugely popular in the day. That play made him a fortune because it's been remade so many times. They kept selling the screen rights, and the play's been done 1,000 times. A lot of Cohan, Cohan would write these plays very quickly. He would go away and you know, if he wrote a play in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that would inspire me too. So sometimes I'd give myself 3 weeks to write a play, and I'd say, of course I should be able to do that because Cohan would do it. So that. But go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. No, that's fine. But it just proves that everything is updatable. Everything. This stuff has stood the test of time, and all you have to do is update it, change a little bit. I went into Broadway, I guess 2 years ago, and we saw Angela Lansbury in Blythe's Spirit. Right. And it was delightful. I think people who've never seen actual human beings on a stage, acting, singing, dancing, they're missing so much because, what's his name? Orson Welles said we're brutalizing our audience. And now with special effects, movie experience is pretty much a letdown because you expect where I love having that interaction with a cast, even though they don't see me, that I'm just somebody out in there, but I'm watching an actual human being doing it in the moment. I'm not watching something they did 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and it's taken this long to get them up in front of me. I'm actually watching them do it in real time now. And one of the ones, Mary Poppins, if anybody has children, I'm going to tell you, we loved that. That was just so cool, the way they did it. And even Blythe's Spirit, you know, you saw the ghost carrying the vase. There was no film trickery. But one thing I've noticed is people don't know how to react to live actors anymore with the clapping to show your appreciation. They don't do that anymore because they don't know how.
Well, I'm not sure. I think if they see a great performance, they're going to respond, or if it touches them in some ways. I don't know. I don't think
I've been to a couple like shows and things where they said, and it's okay to clap to show that you're enjoying something, you know, and I almost feel sorry for him because it's like saying, you know, okay, you don't have to be quiet like you're in a movie theater. You can actually laugh or giggle at a line. You can clap, you know. And I thought, how sad they even have to make this. We've been talking about a friend of ours, a common mutual friend of ours, Michael Townsend Wright, and there's Jack Saleeby. Yeah, I love a piano. And do you want to tell them a little bit about this song?
Well, this is a classic early Irving Berlin recording. I decided no one had done a life story of Irving Berlin, not as a movie or TV play, not as a stage play, and I decided I would create the first play about the life of Irving Berlin. In fact, now I've written 5 different plays about him for different size casts. We'll get them all out there. And then we made this album of the cast album of Irving Berlin's America, co-starring Michael Townsend Wright and Jack Saleeby. And some of the songs in there, like I Love a Piano, these are hit songs that are still very well known. But we also had some songs in there that had never been recorded, and others that had been recorded, but only 100 years ago. No one had recorded them in modern times. So I'm very proud of that album. But if we're going to hear Michael Townsend Wright and Jack Saleeby sing I Love It Piano and tap dance to it, I'd enjoy hearing that again.
Yeah. And this is on Amazon, guys. You can look up Chip Deffa, right? How do you pronounce it? I'm sorry. Deffa. Okay. Deffa.
D-E-F-F-A-A. D-E-F-F-A-A.
Yeah.
If they search for it on Amazon, they'll find me.
Yeah. And so much. There is just a wealth of beautiful, entertaining, quirky, old-time stuff, beautiful stuff. And And I'm afraid I went a little crazy, and I can't play it all tonight. But during my shows, I do another little music show on Thursdays called The Music Box, and I'll definitely be playing a lot of it. But this is Michael Townsend Wright, and then we're going to actually hear George M. Cohan, Cohan's Catholic Actors Guild speech. So we got about 10 minutes of stuff here, but I want you guys to hear it because I think you guys are really going to love it. So with that, I'm going to try to pull this off and see if I don't screw up.
As a child, I went wild when a band played. How I ran to the man when his hand swayed. Clarinets were my pets, and the slide trombone I thought was simply divine. But today, when they play, I could hiss them. Every bar is a jar to my system. But there's one musical instrument that I call mine. I love a piano, I love a piano, I love to hear somebody play upon a piano, a grand piano, it simply carries me away. I know a fine way to treat a Steinway. I love to run my fingers o'er the keys, the ivories, and with the pedal, I love to meddle when Pederuski comes this way. I'm so delighted if I'm invited to hear that long-haired genius play. So you can keep your fiddle and your bow. Give me a P-I-A-N-O-O-O. I love to stop right beside an upright or a high-toned baby grand.
When the green tetrazine starts to warble, I grow cold as an old piece of marble.
I allude to the crude little party singer who don't know when to pause.
At her best, I detest the soprano,
but I run to the one at the piano.
I always love the accompaniment, and that's because I love a piano, I love a piano, I love to hear somebody play. I know a fine way to treat a Steinway. I love to run my fingers o'er the keys, the ivories. I love to stop right
beside an upright or a high tone baby grand.
Dreamstream Radio, the hottest spot on the World Wide Web. Dreamstreamradio.com.
This gathering here tonight, it's more of a tribute to the memory of my father than anything else. And of course, that makes it doubly thrilling to me. I understand, I realize that an occasion of this time that a man should really have sat down and prepared a substantial speech of some kind. But that, of course, that's asking a great deal of a song and dance man. Especially a song and dance man who tried so hard not to be a song and dance man. And then had to go back being a song and dance man in order to earn a living. About a week ago, the New York Times called me up. And the fellow on the phone asked me if I would send them an advance copy of my speech that I was to deliver at the Catholic Actors Guild dinner. And that kind of made a hit with me. I told him, I said, why? I said, I haven't any speech. At least not yet. Well, he said, you know, the dinner's next Sunday. I says, that's what I'm talking about, yes. Then I tried to explain to him that I was the kind of a fella that never even started to write a second act until the first act had been in rehearsal at least a week. He couldn't quite understand that, however. But that's the way it is. I remember very well when I was a playwright in the old days. A fella'd come up and ask me during the rehearsal of a first act, say, what am I going to wear in the second act? I had a set speech for him. I said, well, I don't know, but if you'll tell me what you'd like to wear, maybe you can give me an idea for a second act. I always wanted to be able to make a good speech all my life. I've been wanting to make a good speech. And I always wanted to play a good game of pool, too, but I never could make the grade either way. I don't know why it was. However, I'm satisfied. It's all right. I'm glad to be working for Sam Harris. It's all right with me. He worked for me for 15 years. He didn't know it at the time, but he's found it out since, I guess. This Harris man, by the way, is a very surprising person. Full of surprises. I know he's handed me many a surprise. I don't mean by that I didn't always know that he was a great showman, great judge of plays and all that sort of thing. But I mean, he's a surprising man. I remember the first time he surprised me. Of course, when Sam and I first went in business together, I naturally thought Sam had a lot of money, you know. Now, we didn't talk about that until we were in the middle of rehearsals of our first show. And when he told me he was broke, that was my first surprise. He seemed to be just as much surprised as I was when I told him I was broke, too. And the members of the company were very much surprised when they found out we were both broke. However, we did all right. We went along for a long time. Eventually we had a lot of shows, and we got a lot of theaters. And I remember when we started to accumulate our theater interests, I remember I went to my father. I was a little bit worried about coming too involved. I told him what we were doing, and I asked him, I said, do you think we ought to hang on to these theaters? And I remember my father's advice. I remember it very well. He said, well, I don't know much about whether or not you ought to hang on to the theaters, but you take my tip, kid, and hang on to your dancing shoes. But as to get back to this speech business again, I read in the paper the other day, I was reading Mrs. Roosevelt's column, so you can see that I give the papers an awful reading. I was reading where she told about some fellow that went around, that she'd watched him, I think it was 2 or 3 years. He'd been making the same speech no matter where he went. Made the same speech in the same way, same delivery, same inflection, same everything, same gestures, everything he did. She heard it, she said something like a half a dozen or a dozen times. It's always the same speech, and he always got away with it. Well, it's getting very late, and I'm going to tell you that I beat that fella to it. I made the same curtain speech for about 25 years. And I'm going to make that speech now. And I don't think I'm out of order making it. Because spiritually, I really think that my father thanks you, my mother thanks you, my sister thanks you.
And that was George M. Cohan. And you can see a little bit about the man in that speech, which I wanted people, because we're all used to the James Cagney movie. And, they make him the little festy fighting Irishman. And I'm a festy Irish person, but I think you get a better picture of the man when you hear him. And during this break, Michael Townsend Wright, actor, joined us. Michael, welcome to the Lair.
Thank you, Gail. It's great to be here with you and Chip.
We just played I Love a Piano.
Yes, it was great doing that number and doing Chip's great show.
Yeah,
Berlin's America.
Yeah, how did you guys get meet? Get together?
It's a funny thing. Chip used to be a frequent guest on the Joe Franklin show, and I was also a frequent guest. I knew Joe since I was a young boy, and I would see Chip in the green room, and we would chit chat along with the other people and so forth.
George Bettinger, the whole,
George,
yeah,
the whole old crowd, and also then years later, I was on the Uncle Floyd show, and I think Chip used to see me on there maybe, and he went to school to show you what a small show business world it is. Guess who Chip went to high school with?
Who?
Uncle Floyd Vivino.
Oh, wow.
And his brothers. Right, Chip?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I thanked, excuse me, but I thanked Floyd for ruining Christine and Matthew for me, because they would rush home to watch him every time he was on.
It was a popular show in its day.
It was. Yeah. Yeah, you guys go back a long way. Floyd has a radio show now, and he has a Facebook. Floyd Vivino, Uncle Floyd. So if anybody remembers him from the old days, he's still going and still funny. And from what I understand, he doesn't use, he and technology have not evolved together. I had to do it as a matter of I had to do it, but evidently he's been able to avoid a lot of it. So tell me, you both share a love for, as I was saying to Chip, the great golden age of theater entertainment, the 20s, the 30s, early 40s. Michael, tell me a little bit about how you got into acting.
It's funny, I started doing puppet shows in my yard when I was 3 years old, and the neighbors' children would come, and I would do shows. I had a little puppet theater my father bought for me. And then the girl in the church, our church, Bayview Presbyterian, Barbara Schwall, I think you remember Abby.
Yeah.
Abby Schwall. Her daughter, Barbara, used to do the puppet shows at the strawberry festivals we used to have behind the cottage there. And so I did that around that time. And then I started doing them other places and also performing at the VFW and political functions. They would ask me to sing little songs and things and perform. And also in the school shows. And I never stopped from that moment till this. I've always had a show ahead of me. Not that I worked every day, of course, but I've been very fortunate that way. So I've worked for a long time as a performer.
And I'm still, when you told me you're an actor, and I'm thinking I have to pull words out of this guy, and he's an actor, and he's talking about asking, approaching what's his name to go on one of the USO tours, and I'm looking, and I'm still trying to get it into my head. This guy doesn't ever say anything,
Quiet guy.
Yeah.
That's often the case, I guess they tell me. Sort of introverts become performers somehow.
Yeah.
Different people almost. And Chip can attest to that, I guess, right, Chip?
Oh, sure.
Many performers are quiet and shy until they go on the stage.
I think, so let me ask you, who was your biggest influence in theater that because you guys definitely are into that golden age with all the heart and all the big producers, George M. Cohan, Cole Porter, Irving Berlin. Who's your favorite?
Well, I loved all of those. Of course, I saw Yankee Doodle Dandy. You see, with Jimmy Cagney, in the old days, the channels, they were actually cheapest to show, the old movies. So we grew up on it. Our generation grew up with the old movies. And so, of course, I love them. And I love the Three Stooges. I love comedy, Laurel and Hardy, and Abbott and Costello and all that. I loved comedy very much. But I also loved, later on especially, the more serious acting. I loved Laurence Olivier and Robert Donat, and just great actors, too. So I loved both comedy and drama. I used to think that if you called yourself an actor, like the late, great Mickey Rooney, he could do anything.
He was a wonderful
comedy,
actor.
singing, dancing. If you called yourself an actor, you should really be able to do everything, I think. At least somewhat, all of the things.
I admire that in Michael. One of the reasons I've written plays, especially for Michael, I wrote the role of Irving Berlin for him, and I wrote the role of Eddie Foy for him, is because he can do both the pathos, the sad scenes, the poignant scenes, and the comedy scenes. And he's an actor as well as a vaudevillian and a comic, and can do broad comedy. And there aren't a lot of people out there that can do, in my experience, equally well at making you cry or making you laugh. And they're both essential parts of why we go to the theater. We go to laugh as well as to cry,
Right. It's the theater, and I was saying it before, it's that whole physical, there they are, it's in real time. Oh, yeah. You're sharing a moment, and when I saw Angela Lansbury a couple of years ago in Blythe Spirit, and Rupert something was he played the lead male role, Rex Harrison's role, and he blew a line. And the female actress has been on Law and Order a number of times, and she started laughing. And she actually had to put a pillow over her face because she started laughing so hard. But it is that physical, personal interaction.
Sure.
Each
you
night,
don't even mind the flubs because they're happening and you're part of it. You're part of it a
yeah,
little bit. And
you're sharing in a secret moment, like, ooh, they blew it, and I was here for it.
I have to tell you something funny. Chip knows this very well. He would have Q&As after our performances, and all of his performances, most of them. And sometimes people would, because it was a two-man show, Irving Berlin's America. It's a two-man show, and it's quite it's a lot of dialogue and a lot of music. And some of the people, especially the older ones, would ask me, they wouldn't ask so much the young fella, but they'd ask me, how did you remember all those lines? And I would say, well, as Chip well knows, I didn't all the time. And a couple of times I really got mixed up. But the audience forgives you because, as you say, they're part of it with you. And don't forget, this goes back, this is the oldest form of entertainment, because I'm sure the cavemen told stories in front of the fire.
It goes back to the Greeks and before.
It's a living thing, as you say. It's an immediate and connection, a real connection.
Mm-hmm. It goes back, theater goes back to before the Greeks. I mean, I'm sure some caveman was sitting there making grunts and groans, and everybody understood exactly what he was talking about and laughing, and then he took this leaf, and I tried to tell him it was poison ivy, but he wouldn't listen to me. So now he's, and that's the fun of it, because you're personally interacting with someone, and that is so important, and I wish people would get their kids to more theater. I don't suppose you could do a little Jack Benny for me, could you?
Of course I could. I mean, I am a ham at heart,
I know.
Happy to. I just want to say it's wonderful to be on your program, Gail, and with my old friend Chip DeFaas. I can't tell you how wonderful it is, really.
You're
Now,
amazing.
Chip watches that. Chip is a great fan of these channels that show the old programs, right, Chip?
Yes.
Yes.
Burns and
Yeah.
Allen and Jack Benny.
Yeah.
Thank goodness they're showing them. Cozy TV, Antenna TV, this TV, whatever it is. Me, we don't get me. I don't get me either. But
Yeah.
They have all these channels, and they're wonderful for the nostalgiacs like ourselves.
I'm going to ask you both a question, but I'm going to let Chip answer first.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of my favorite quotes is Boris Karloff, who said, "You have to have the fire in the belly."
Oh, yes.
Because that is going to carry you through the lean times.
And believe me, when you're an actor, most of the times are lean times.
Right. Chip, how's the fire in your belly when things are really bad and the electric's about to be shut down?
But I'm doing what I really want to do and love to do. I mean, I was thinking about this last night. It was 2 a.m, and I was exhausted, and there I was writing, and I realized I couldn't not be writing. I like to write the scripts. I like to direct the shows and stuff, but it's almost, it doesn't feel like I have much choice in these matters. I mean, even when I was tired and I knew I should be sleeping, something is there. And there was a story, Louis Armstrong used to say that a song, one of his hit songs, came to him in a dream, and he woke up and the whole song was there, and he had to write down the song, the music, and the lyrics. And one of his biographers was skeptical, because maybe it hadn't happened to that biographer, he couldn't imagine happening to Louis, that he had to get up from his sleep and write it down. And to me, that seems so plausible, because things like that have happened to me so many times. I couldn't believe anyone could be skeptical of that. But these plays need to be written, but I love also writing for a specific person. Like I was saying, I've written plays specifically for Michael Townsend right here, and specifically for John Peterson, who's in Florida, and for some other people. But the actors have to have that fire in the belly. My gosh, it worries me a little that if I'm rehearsing a play and I say to somebody, so-and-so wants us to be on their radio show or their TV show, and the actor says, no, I wouldn't want to do that, and I've had some people like that, or say, I'd have to be paid to do that, they're not going to have a career. They don't have enough drive or desire, and I've seen that in people, and I'm like, you're in the wrong business. Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah, I had a big, long talk about that today, about, when you cut your own throat, so to speak. You're actually burning your own bridge. When you turn away opportunities to come on a show like this, because I don't think 5 minutes is enough to talk about everything Chip does. I mean, you've written books on jazz and everything you've done in 5 minutes, even Reader's Digest couldn't do it. So, really, because you're so talented, but you're both so talented. Tell me about Mad About the Boy.
Mad About the Boy, see here, for a show like this, I drew upon a specialized knowledge I have that, as someone who's into early show business and early music and stuff like that, I was aware that there were songs that were gay-themed long before gay liberation. Right. And I was one of the few people that would be aware of what was being done, say, in Germany in the 30s, in the American South in the 30s, in England in the 30s or the 20s, that I knew that Ma Rainey, for example, she was the first major blues singer in America. I knew she had written a song about a lesbian song in the 20s. Wasn't well known, but that's part of my area of knowledge, and I had written the liner notes for one of her albums. And I knew that by the same token that Cole Porter and Noel Coward had written songs in America and England for the theater that had gay references back in the 20s, and that different ones had done this in different countries. And I said, I'm going to gather some of these songs together and do a show, which no one had done before, to show, the original idea was just to show that there were these early gay songs, and we could put them together. So there were gay-themed blues songs, and gay-themed theater songs, and gay-themed whatever. And we tried this show out. I threw it together very quickly. The original version was done. I mean, it was one of those things that I put it together while we rehearsed it, and we put it up within a few weeks. And then this one now is a more expanded version. I had a little more time to write and think and add to it. And now we're in rehearsals, and it's a full-length musical show. And the main point is for people to have fun, but also in the course of it, and there's some original songs that I wrote too, but in the course of it, the strength is for people to say, my gosh, that's news to me, that there could have been a song expressing gay rights in the 1930s, or a song about a woman singing she's a lesbian in the 20s. And there were these very, clear statements of identity long before modern gay rights or gay liberation. So I wanted to make sure that we fun, but also open a window on our past.
Yeah, I don't know when everybody became blind, but most of my friends in high school were gay and lesbian, and we had no problems. I mean, I never even ever looked at somebody and said, oh, they're gay. You know what I mean? I don't know when all this happened, but yes, it has been in our since Adam and Eve. I'm going to say it since the very beginning. It's been there. I don't know what all the problem is or why everybody is shocked to hear about it. It's the play. It's got a gay theme to it.
Yeah, and what's funny is the theater community, this is not any big deal to anybody.
No.
And some of my actors in this play and in our first try, it happened to be straight. They don't care if they're playing a gay character or singing a gay song. But I thought we'd have some fun with it, that there were people writing songs back in the 20s dealing with these themes. And then it got sort of suppressed or underground or whatever. And so I'm rediscovering some of these very early songs or early references and stuff. So that's part of the fun, for people to understand there were people who had these feelings in the 20s and 30s. And so it's partly a history lesson. There's a part of me that's always an educator, and it's partly just to have some fun, and it's a change of pace, because I'm like I told you, I'm doing these shows about Irving Berlin and George M. Cohan, and they're a certain kind of historical entertainment, and this is another kind, but it's just a different thing. But everybody when we did the first little workshop, and I told you, Tommy Toon came in and different other people came in to see it, and people learned as well as having fun, and that's why Tommy said, you got to get this out there, because there really wasn't anything quite like this that he had seen, and so that's where we're trying to develop it more.
Right.
We'll just do a little tryout at the 13th Street Theater and see what we can do with it, and then I'll go back to Berlin and stuff.
I want you guys to hang in here. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to play Dinah Washington singing Mad About the Boy, okay? Sure. Mm-hmm. You guys won't be able to hear it, unfortunately, but you'll be able to hear it on the podcast tomorrow, so that's cool. Okay, so that was Dinah Washington, Mad About the Boy. Michael has to leave in a few minutes, but Michael, you just finished doing a one-man thing?
Well, actually, it was a one-act play, one of three one-act plays by Charles Messina at the Abingdon Theater just last week, and that was a lot of fun. I played an eccentric doctor, and it was a lot of fun, that show. And next week I'll be in Ocean City, New Jersey on the 11th of April, which is coming fast, and it'll be the Doodah Parade, which I've been in many times, but this year it's a tribute to the late, great Joe Franklin, a dear friend of Chip and myself and of everyone, and I'm honored to do that. They've asked me to say a few words at the end of the parade on the grandstand and do a little of my Joe Franklin impression. I want to say, I am with you, wandering through. Remember, I want to say, that sort of thing. And
I
nice
love
little
it.
Stories. And but I just want to say before I go how honored I've always been to be in Chip's plays and how prolific he is. I've never known anyone so prolific and versatile and great quality with each of them. And how many of your plays themselves have been published, Chip? How many now?
16 plays now, yeah.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? Can be performed all over the world, and they are, right, Chip?
Yeah.
In fact, I'm waiting. This week we should get off from the publishers, Irving Berlin's America. The actual printed copies are just about to come out, and the dedication will thank the actors who've helped develop this play, and Michael, of course, is certainly one of those actors, and as well as Giuseppe Basilio and the others we've mentioned. But so he'll be sharing in that dedication when that published script is. I keep waiting, thinking any day it'll be here. So they tell me.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're waiting for something, it's hard. Michael, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, I have a website, michaeltownsendwright.com, our original, and my email is on there if they want to get a hold of me. And I'm available, of course.
On Facebook, too, you can get a hold of him
yes.
because he's
I'm
on my
Facebook,
friends list.
Michael Townsend Wright. And I'll be happy to friend people if they're interested, of course.
Okay.
And it's great to visit with an old friend, too, Gail. I mean,
thank you.
We
go back a long time. Holy smoke. We were actually young.
We're just young. We're whippersnappers.
I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, did I just age myself? Oh yeah, we were just babies back then, fighting, the good fight. Thank you so much for coming on, and all you have to do is hang up.
Okay, and give my best to your family, Gail.
Okay, and God
I'll
bless.
Speak to you soon, Chip.
Happy Easter.
Bye-bye.
Night, Michael. That was wonderful. I have been after Michael to come on for so long, and he's, okay, no. So I'm so glad. So Mad About the Boy is what?
Well, Mad About the Boy it's a musical comedy that it has some new original songs that I've written. But it's about actors putting together a gay musical that uses lots of early gay songs to show people there were these songs. Like, for example, the song Mad About the Boy, Noel Coward, who was England's greatest musical theater writer and master songwriter, he actually wrote that because he had a crush on a famous male movie star, and he wrote that song for him. And that recording you played was played by Dinah Washington, and she was the queen of the blues, and she was a major talent. She was as good as it gets, and she was also, as one of her husbands told me, she was bisexual, and there's been that's so she fits in with that theme about the sexuality. But it's a play anybody can go to. It's a PG-rated play. It's not a
right.
But we want to get some of these songs out there just to and give the little history, like just to let people know. It adds something to that song, knowing that Noel Coward wrote it because there was a guy he liked, or letting people know. For example, Cole Porter wrote "You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To," which was a huge hit in World War II, and he wrote that for a serviceman that he was in love with and was hoping would come back safely from the war. And in the song, although it's usually sung as a heterosexual ballad, if it's sung in a movie or TV special or something like that, but he didn't specify the gender. When he wrote that, the lyrics, "You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To," in his head he was thinking of a guy, but it could be sung by a girl to a guy or a guy to a girl or anybody. But it's just the universality of love. So we just want to have some fun with it. And I have a wonderful cast there, and it's cute because one of the other things I feel good about is like one of my choreographers here. I've got two choreographers. Now, Raina Hurt, she's maybe 21. She's been working with me on projects since she was 14. My assistant director is the same age. He's been working with me on things since he was 11. The other choreographer has worked with me, for 7 years too. I love having the music director, maybe almost a decade, Richard Danley. I love doing these projects with. It's almost like a repertoire company of people that I really like. They're talented people, but they've grown up with me, and they'll do show after show, and it's fun to. So I'm grateful for that too. That I have some of these actors that I'll work with time and again, and some of the actors in this show, like Joris de Graaf and Michael Chiz and Maite Usal, have done other shows with me, and and then there's some new ones I found from auditions, and that's always exciting to see somebody that no one's ever heard of. I've got some newcomers in the show, John Brady and Cody Jordan, and I think they've got a brilliant future, and someday people are going to say, "Oh, you knew them when?" And I say, "Yep."
Yeah. That's the it's the reward in itself that you've helped them. John Peterson does Harrigan, and what show is this from?
Okay, this is John Peterson, who's right now down in Florida he's doing a show of mine called George M. Cohan at Night. I've written a half dozen shows on Cohan, and this we sang. He sings this down in Florida right now in George M. Cohan at Night. But we made this. This was from a show I did called George M. Cohan in his own words. That was with a big cast, and I think we're going to hear John joined by Elariba Kaitis singing a little taste of Harrigan. I think. We've actually recorded this a few times, so I think that's probably the clip you're going to play. But we'll hear it, and I'll tell you after we play it.
Yeah, I think he's the only one that sings it. But
then that may be. I'm sorry. Then that may be from George M. Cohan Tonight, which is the show he did it for me off Broadway, and he's been doing that show about 10 years. That's a one-man show. If it's by himself, it's from George M. Cohan Tonight. Yes.
Yeah. And it's written by George M. Cohan, and I want to play it. So everybody just sit and relax, okay? And we're going to start.
Dream Stream Radio is now available on TuneIn.com. Visit www.tunein.com and download the app for any smartphone, tablet, or your computer. Listen live on the go, no matter where you are. Only from Dream Stream Radio.
Who is the man who will spend or will even lend? Harrigan, that's me. Who is your friend when you find that you need a friend? Harrigan, that's me. For I'm just as proud of my name, you see, as an emperor czar or a king could be. Who is the man helps a man anytime he can? Harrigan, that's me. Harrigan spells Harrigan. Proud of all the Irish blood that's in me. Devil a man could see a word again me. Harrigan is a name that a shame never has been connected with. Harrigan, that's me. Harrigan is a name that a shame never has been connected with. Harrigan, that's me.
Every Saturday night is filled with the greatest rock and roll on Rock and Roll's Greatest Hits, hosted by Johnny Bravo. At 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time every Saturday night, Bravo takes your requests and dedications while playing those hard-to-find favorites. Join us every Saturday night for the best of the 50s and 60s on Rock and Roll's Greatest Hits on DreamStreamRadio.com.
And again, tell them who was singing that song, Harrigan.
That's John Peterson, and I'd love to tell you a little bit about him because he's for my money, he's the best living song and dance man out there. He had starred in shows in England, and then he was brought over here to star as the MC in the national tour of Cabaret, and he did that for 2 years and was covering the role on Broadway. And he came to audition for me. I held auditions saying I need someone to play George M. Cohan, and I saw a zillion people, and none of them were impressed me. And John he starts singing a Judy Garland song, and I'd never heard of him. I'd never seen him before, and I tell him right away, "You're my Cohan. I'm going to send everyone else who's lined up waiting to have an audition. I'm going to send them home, tell them I found you. You're my Cohan." And he says, "Great, I'll do the show. Don't you want to hear my second song?" And I said, "You can sing the second song, but you've already got the part." So he sings me another song. And he says, "Now, what do I do? This is a Friday." And he, at the time, was standby for the male lead in Cabaret on Broadway. And he says, "What do we do? This is a Friday." I said, "Well, now I got to start writing the script because we're going to open it. We're going to open in 3 weeks." And I said, and you're going to have to quit your job. He had a high-paid production contract job on Broadway and work for me for free because I'm going to need all of your energy every day to work on this thing. He quits his job. He took a gamble, a great leap of faith, that I was going to write a show for him. He had done cabaret for a couple of years, and he felt like there was nothing more new he could find in that.
Right.
And here I was going to write a script for him, but he'd have to quit that job and give me all his energy. And here, how many actors would gamble like that? That's the soul of an artist, that he said, okay, even though Chips, I said, there's no guarantee this will go anyplace or be paid. And we did this play, and it was a wonderful experience, and all these people came to see it. And Sarah Jessica Parker came, and Matthew Broderick, and Soupy Sales, the whole world, Mercedes Ellington. A lot of people came in our little run, and we got an offer to have the play published and do it other places. And then I wrote different versions of it. So that was like for a big cast. And I wrote the one-man version, which really clicked, and he's been doing that for me for like at least a decade. And we've done that all over the country. We've done that. We went out to Minneapolis. We went to New Orleans. We did it in Boston, in Rochester, all kinds of places. And he sings up a storm. So that's my John Peterson. And I would have had him call up, except right now he's 9 to 11. He's performing the show right now in Florida.
Well, you tell him that I do pre-records too, so that we can, and it doesn't have to be 2 hours. You know, if we can only do 30 minutes, you know, we can do a pre-record. We just have to get together, and anybody that, you know, I'm willing to give everybody a voice. You were gonna say something about the Mad About the Boy. It's at the 13th Street Playhouse. That's where it's going to open?
Mad About the Boy is at the 13th Street Repertory Theater, which is 50 West 13th Street. And they have a website, and people could go to www.13thstreetrep.org, www.13thstreetrep.org, and they'll see information on this play and can buy tickets. I've done a lot of shows there. It's run by a 98-year-old woman, Edith O'Hara, and she's run this place to help nurture new talent, and she's just been great. She's just said, "Oh, this you want to do this gay musical now, or do you want to do Irving Berlin the next time? Do you want to do George M. Cohan?" It's all good to her, whatever we want to try out. So we try out these things, and they wind up going all different places. So it's nice to have a base in New York where I can try out new shows.
That's wonderful. And you were talking about maybe using like a promo for you know, tickets or something. I don't.
Oh yes, I was going to say the tickets at the box office are $30. So if you went up to the box office and as a customer, it was $30. But if you said if you go to that box office and you give a code word of Mo and you said people said they heard this broadcast, we're going to let you have a ticket for half price for $15 or two for the price of one, two for that $30 instead of that. So if you got to the box office and you say, I heard Chip on Mo Banshee's radio show, or just say the word Mo, and say I'm asking for the discounted price of $15 instead of $30. That's exclusive, and then we'll get some guests that we know came from this from this radio show, and that will be, you know, a special offer at the box office. So I'll be happy to accommodate people like that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. You've written books on jazz, and the blues. You're a busy guy. So tell us about your jazz and blues books. And I've written books too. I wrote a book. I edited and annotated a book on F. Scott Fitzgerald's earliest writings. I have a lot of interest, but the jazz and the blues, I've always loved these. I wanted to meet and talk to a lot of the early jazz greats because their life stories interested me as much as the music. And I would seek out people that had, you know, taken some of the first jazz over to Europe in the 1920s and had been pioneers. And I knew I would learn about that, stories from them that would
helped me in how to live my life, because I admired some of these people. In fact, some of the things they told me actually wound up in this current show, Mad About the Boy. It actually quotes things I got from a couple of the old timers. But I just a lot of what I did was just some kind of a personal curiosity, and I used to enjoy reading interviews with some of the oldest jazz musicians, and the fact that I could get to meet some of these people and then get their stories and become friends with them, that was important to me, like meeting the people in the theater. These are people I admired and respected. And so whether it was me hearing from Doc Cheatham, who was up in his 90s, or from Artie Shaw, who was up in his 90s, big band leaders, or Woody Herman, it was important to me to be able to preserve some of their history and talk to them and get them to share stories with me no one had told them. Little Jimmy Scott was a wonderful rhythm and blues singer, and I had a number of meetings with him at his home in New Jersey, and he would gradually open up more and more, and maybe he'd by the final interviews he was crying a lot, remembering a lot of the hardships of his life, but he was sharing things that I was glad to be able to preserve and document. Because a lot of these older black artists lived through a lot of racism, so their stories were not just about the hits they had, but about what they endured, and so that needed to be preserved too, because there's a lot of young people have no idea of how things were not very long ago. So
I have a problem with parents because, yes, we want to get past it. We don't want to dwell on it, but they need to know the struggles of people, because the Irish, when my family came here, we're, even in the Irish community, considered newcomers. And, pretty much Irish need not apply,
That's right.
And country music, folk music, jazz music, all of this is a reflected of hardship. It's the story of the people.
Yeah. And often outsiders in our country have had the strongest statements to make and stuff. But yes, certainly. So all those things, and I gravitate towards people I could learn from, like Ruth Brown, who was a great rhythm and blues star and a wonderful artist, and she was in Black and Blue on Broadway. She won the Tony Awards, and she's won a Grammy Award. She won a W.C. Handy Award. She won a lot of things, but she would teach me about life too and the ups and downs of the business. She was this huge star, and they cheated her out of her royalties, and they didn't pay her properly. And there was a time in her life when her career dried up and she couldn't be recording, and she was working under an assumed name as a domestic, and she was cleaning floors, scrubbing floors in this woman's home, and on the radio she was listening, and they were playing on an oldie station recordings she had made back in the 50s, and it was ironic for her to hear these recordings still being reissued. She was not getting a dime. She was being cheated, and there she was scrubbing somebody's floors, and little Jimmy Scott listening on the radio when they were playing his records and describing him on WBGO, a jazz station in Newark, as the late little Jimmy Scott. and he and his wife called up and said, "I'm not dead," and the wife drove him down to the studio to show to people he's not only not dead, but he's living 15 minutes away from the radio station. And went in and started talking to them on the air. But so that's part of the business too, this up and downs, and how quickly you can get forgotten, or how hard it is sometimes to get work, and that not everyone's honest. We had when I did my show George M. Cohen tonight, and we've taken that to cities all across the U.S., but we also encountered some crooked producers who didn't pay us, or who one crook. He was such a crook. He said, he asked us, John Peterson and me, could we do a date down in South Jersey on a certain date? And we had to say, no, we're already booked someplace else. It's impossible. And he says, you've got to do the date for me. I'm already advertising it. He was already selling tickets, and he had not contacted us. And it was saying, like, Chip DeFaas show, George M. Cohen Tonight, starring John Peterson, and he was selling tickets for the event. And we said, you can't be doing that. John's not available. He's going to be working up in Maine at that week. And the producer was such a crook. He didn't take the ads down, and he got somebody else to get up and sing Cohen songs, and he presented us George M. Cohen at night.
Yeah.
And it was not my show. And some people probably bought those tickets thinking they're going to see this show that got raised from the New York Times and was an off-Broadway hit, and they go and see some horrible show and probably thought, oh, that show was terrible, but it wasn't. Right. It was just a crooked producer, you know.
Yeah. Greed is always a factor in anything. The Voices of the Jazz Age, Blue Rhythms, 6 Lives in Rhythm and Blues, and Jazz Veterans are 3 of the books about music. And are they still in print?
Yes, you can get them at Amazon or through eBay or something like that. My books are out there. I never know how well a book is going to do. Again, I write these books mostly because I love the artists and I wanted to interview and get the stories of people like Artie Shaw or whoever it was while they were still alive. Woody Herman, different ones. Ray McKinley. I loved all these old big band leaders and jazz artists. And Jabbo Smith and different people going back to the 20s. But then sometimes, like, I ghost wrote David Cassidy's autobiography. You know, he was from the Partridge Family.
Right.
And he was a big pop singer and TV star in his day. And I never thought anybody would buy that book. I thought he was forgotten and has been. And that book sold really well, and they made that into a TV movie. So you don't know. You never know what finds an audience and what doesn't. And that was written very quickly, and even David was surprised that there was that much interest in him, and that there were people, he was part of their childhood or something like that, and they wanted to read the book, even though it's not a very happy book, and he had a lot of personal problems.
He was the son of Jack Cassidy, and Jack was an alcoholic, and then Shirley, what's her name, was his stepmother. And she ended up playing his mother in it. My kids loved that series. And it's actually out on DVD, and you can buy it because my granddaughter got into the Partridge music, and she's 18 now. But I guess when she was about 10, I bought the DVD set, and she liked the music a lot. So nothing really goes away. I have a song for you because I do know that you enjoy the blues, and we're going to go and we're going to play it. But first, we're going to play Michael Townsend Wright and Jack Saleeby in Mary's a Grand Old Name, and I'm sure you know how this was written, this song. So, do you want to tell them how it was written?
Well, we can just enjoy it. This was a George M. Cohan song. I actually
it was Irving Berlin, wasn't it? Well, no, you're right. It was Cohan.
It was a Cohan song, but I used it in my show Irving Berlin's America because Berlin idolized Cohan so much. Cohan was Berlin's lifelong one of his 2 idols, and all his life Berlin kept a portrait of Cohan up on his wall, and it was Berlin who led the fundraising drive that resulted in getting the statue of George M. Cohan in Times Square at 46th Street and Broadway. But in this song, it's the older, in this particular performance, I mean, it's the older Irving Berlin telling a young visitor, recalling and singing a Cohan song. In my show, all the other songs are like Berlin songs, but we snuck in this Cohan song as a way of reminding people that Berlin always credited Cohan as his first inspiration. Right. And Cohan in real life, his wife Agnes Mary Nolan, her middle name was Mary. In the movie of Yankee Doodle Dandy, they fictionalized a little bit. Right. They have him marrying a woman named Mary, which Agnes Mary Nolan took to be representing her, even if it's, Mary was actually her middle name. But it's the same idea. But Agnes Mary Nolan always felt Cohan had written it for her. So even whatever the truth is, it's a beautiful song, and we'll listen to Michael sing it.
Yeah. Michael is singing it, and Jack. And then I've got some WC Handy for you, so we will be right back.
Right.
Everybody just cool your jets and enjoy the show.
Class song. Back when I was at Mike Salter's place, I'd sing something by George M. Cohan. For it is Mary, Mary, plain as any name can be, but with propriety, society will say Marie, but it was Mary, Mary, long before the fashions came. And there is something there that sounds so square, it's a grand old name. You know, Jack, I don't think George M. ever wrote a finer song. So sweet, so simple.
And there is something there that sounds so square, it's a grand old name.
And there is something there that sounds so square, it's a grand old name.
Dream, stream, radio. Join Joe Hoffman live every Sunday night beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for the best in blues and ice cold brews. It's Harmonica Joe's Back Porch, only on DreamStreamRadio.com.
and that was W.C. Handy and the St. Louis Blues. What is, you love the blues and you love jazz, and it goes back to when I read your bio, you aren't into the real early stuff, but more towards the stuff that influences music today. Can you explain that?
Well, actually, a little of both. I mean, I'm into. W.C. Handy's very early. That's certainly he's the beginning of the blues.
He's considered the godfather of the blues.
Right. And he interests me as much as anything else. In fact, I was down in Memphis some years ago for a project, and there was an old lady, and I loved talking with her and going to. I accompanied her to the cemetery to put flowers on her husband's grave, but she was recalling that when she was young, this is was going back in the early 20th century, W.C. Handy's band would play for her parties, so to her, W.C. Handy wasn't just some remote historical figure. It was somebody who had, played at the family's home.
Right.
But this was, I love all these early blues, and these are timeless. I mean, you're listening to the St. Louis Blues. This is really the foundation of, this is blues music begins with W.C. Handy. He wasn't, a lot of times he was, he acknowledged himself a lot of times he wasn't necessarily creating some of the strains he's known for. He was writing them down and copywriting things that were already around. They were like folk music, and who first might have played that phrase is lost, but he might have been the first one that copyrighted an arrangement or turned it into a fixed form and something like that. But his stuff is timeless. Blues.
I sang with the Billy Graham Crusade when they were in New York in the 60s, and Ethel Waters sang with us.
Oh, I love her.
And she sang His Eye is on the Sparrow.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you, she leveled the place. And she was older. She was in her 80s, but my God, she leveled the place. I sat in awe of her, because she was doing what she loved, and she was singing to a God she loved, and she just, there wasn't a dry eye in the place, and she had that smile, and I know he's watching me,
Right.
These people were amazing. Their music and what they contributed to music. Even Noel Cowell, he wrote a lot of stuff. And Irving Berlin, I think one of my favorite Berlin's songs is Always. I'll be loving you always,
He wrote that as a present for his wife and signed the song over to her, so all the royalties made over $250,000 went to her as a kind of a wedding present, not to him. But it's funny, one time I asked Carol Channing who were the greatest performers she'd ever seen in her life, and she started with Ethel Waters, and recalling the first time she saw Waters was 1933, and she could recall every detail of it, where she was standing on the stage, what the curtains were, what the lights were, what she was singing, and she and Waters eventually became great friends, and Waters became almost like a part of her family. But she said there was such humanity there and such a depth of feeling that so it was interesting that I didn't know what she'd answer when I asked her that, but Waters was one of the greats she had seen.
We've got, and I told you time would fly. We've only got 15 minutes left, and I do have the clip of Noel Cowell singing "Mad About the Boy." What do you hope your legacy is going to be?
My legacy?
Because you're doing it all. You're writing, you're producing, you're directing. You're amazing. You touch so many lives. You're bringing theater to people. Is there something else you want to do? What about a legacy?
I'm loving what I'm doing, but before I get to that, let me just say, George M. Cohan had tremendous admiration for Noel Coward, and vice versa. And Cohen wrote a letter of admiration to Coward and gave him a present. He gave him an expensive piano, just like Cohen had and used, just like Irving Berlin had. It was one of these transposing pianos. It had a lever because Cohen could only play in one key, so could Noel Coward at the time, so could Irving Berlin, and it had a lever that you could, the piano would shift keys mechanically, but that was an extraordinary gift to give to, but Coward, like Cohen, was self-taught and could act, he could sing, he could dance, he could write music, he could write lyrics, he could write plays, he could direct and produce. One of the few people, so that naturally they admired each other, but I like, the reason these people inspired me, like Cohen, he didn't go to school for these things. He just did the things he wanted to. And when people would say, oh, you're not qualified to do that, or you shouldn't be able to do that, he just went out and did them. And all my life it's the same way. Somebody would say, like, who says you can write a play, or who says you can write a song, or who says you can direct? Nobody said I could. I just want to try it and do it. And I remember once going to a director I admired so much, and I wanted to say to him, like, you know, I'm directing these little musicals, but you've been in the business for so many years, and I'm young. Can you give me tips on directing a musical? And this guy was a respected director and somebody I admired so much. He said, if you look at my resume, you'll see I've never directed a musical. I'd be scared to direct a musical. I don't have the training to direct a musical. And here I was doing it without, and it never occurred to me that he had never done that. And he said I had guts because I was going out and doing something that would have scared him. And I said, well, just you got to try the things you want to try. I just enjoy what I'm doing. I love writing these plays. I'm very happy doing this. But I would have been happy with 1,000 interests. I would have been happy if I had become a school teacher. I mean, I just would have become the best. I would have tried to become the best school teacher I could. So that's it's fun.
Orson Welles made the same comment when he started directing his first play on Broadway. He had no idea about directing. And then when he went to do the pictures, he had no idea about camera positionings. If you just move it a few inches, suddenly the person looks like they're walking the opposite direction. You know, he learned it all by the seat of his pants, pretty much. But it's what he wanted to do, you know. And Anthony Newley, I just had Susan Selfie on. She has a book, Dear Tony. It's on Amazon about her relationship with Anthony Newley. He couldn't write a word of music, yet he wrote. He composed, told the guy what to write down. The Candyman, Willy Wonka's songs. Who Can I Turn To? All these great songs come out of these people, and they can't write a one bar of music.
Well, Irving Berlin the same way. He'd have to have a musical secretary write it down. He could plunk it out like in one key. He might plunk out the melody on this piano, or he might sing it to the guy or hum it to the guy. But somebody else had to write it down. He could not write music or read music, and he created over 1,500 songs that way. Johnny Mercer couldn't read music or write music, yet he wrote. Besides, he wrote lyrics to countless songs, but he also wrote other songs where he'd have a musical secretary take down the melody that he was humming or singing or plunking out. So it's sometimes you need a little assistance, but you get the things out there. And it's funny you mentioned Anthony Newley because Johnny Peterson, who we played earlier, he's my Cohan, but he tours. When he's not doing Cohan, he has his own one-man tribute to Anthony Newley. And when you have him on guest, you can ask him about that. It'll all connect. It all comes back in a circle.
Yeah, he was a very talented man.
I'm so glad you invited me to do this, Gail. It's been such a wonderful show. You know.
Yes, I've enjoyed it immensely. I love it all. So you tell everybody again about Mad About the Boy, where they can see it, where they can get tickets, your site. Give them your site, everything.
Oh, thank you. Yes, yeah. I have my own website, www.chipdeffaas.com, and that's Chip. DEFFAA.com, and I'm on Facebook, and you can befriend me on Facebook. If you want to send me a friend request and said, I heard you on Mo's show, I would love that. The show Mad About the Boy it will be playing at the 13th Street Theater opening April 12th, and that's at 50 West 13th Street. And their website is www.13thstreetrep.org. But the tickets online are $30, and at the box office they'd be $30. But if you showed up for a performance and you said at that box office, I want that discount for $15 that I heard about on Mo's show, we'll give it half price as a way. I used to do this when I was on Joe Franklin's show, as a way of seeing, who listened to that show, and that somebody might come and they're entitled to that discount because they're a friend of Mo's, or they listen to Mo's show, and we'd be honored to have them as our guest.
And that's wonderful. Thank you. Who's your stars in Mad About the Boy?
They're wonderful young cast. I've got Maite Uzal's a gal from Spain. She's wonderful. Luca Frick's a young man from Slovenia. Joris de Graaf is from the Netherlands. Cody Jordan's from Texas. John Brady's from New Jersey. Michael Chiz is from Canada. Nice international cast of people, young and old, singing these songs. And there's some songs, there's some comedy, some new songs, but a lot of these old songs too. We'll sing old blues and go right back to Ain't Nobody's Business If I Do, and some modern songs. A lot of fun.
Yes. I want to thank you so much for coming on. And so your legacy is to what? You just be happy if people enjoyed your work years to come?
I like that. And I also I'm enjoying, as I do all these plays, I'm enjoying that I've helped some of these young actors come along too, and we've had people I've been working with for 10 years or 5 years, 10 years, whatever, that maybe I can help nurture their careers just as so many of these old timers have done so much to help me. So that's part of the fun of it too. Yeah.
I want to play a song, and it's Noel Coward singing Mad About the Boy. Now, you have to remember, he was gay, and he was smitten with a young man in the military, right?
Well, that was Cole Porter, who was, at the time, had a fellow who was in the Army that he wrote, You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To. But Noel Coward, he wrote this because he turned this into a song for something else. A woman introduced this, but he wrote this song because there was a male actor he was in love with, and that gave him the thing of that. So he was expressing his own feelings, even though he gave the song to a woman to sing in a show on but we'll listen to him sing it himself, and it's still a good song by a master British.
Okay, and I need you to tell them about the music they can find on Amazon and I think YouTube. You said you can find some of your music, because some of it is great historic stuff. Some of it's from his different shows.
Oh, I have maybe 10 different cast albums, and if you do a search on Amazon or iTunes or cdbaby.com, and you search under Defaa, which is DEFFAA, or Chip Defaa, DEFFAA, some of them would come up, different shows of mine, like George M. Cohan Tonight has a wonderful Cohan songs, and Irving Berlin's America's Irving Berlin songs. And then some shows have songs like Theater Boys that I've written myself, and the Seven Little Foys has a mix of songs I wrote myself and songs the Foys family introduced back in the day when they were the top family act in vaudeville. But I just enjoy what I'm doing, and it's just fun to keep trying to do another show and like that.
What do you already have your sights on something that you're going to do after the show closes?
Yes, because I'm developing 5 different shows about Irving Berlin, and right now we put out the first album, Irving Berlin's America. In fact, we made 2 versions of it with 2 of our casts. And then right now we're recording the album of the next Berlin show I developed, Irving Berlin's Ragtime Review, with a cast of 13. We have 1 or 2 more recording sessions, and then we'll get that album out. But there's several other Berlin shows that I have to. There's a one-man Berlin show I'm developing, and a bigger Berlin show. And so those, when I'm done with Mad About the Boy, I go back to focusing on Irving Berlin and whatever the traffic will allow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to play Noel Coward singing Mad About the Boy. Okay, everybody?
I met him at a party just a couple of years ago. He was rather over-hearty and ridiculous, but as I've seen him on the screen, he cast a certain spell. I basked in his attraction for a couple of hours or so. His manners were a fraction too meticulous. If he was real or not, I couldn't tell. But like a silly fool, I fell. Mad about the boy. I know it's stupid to be mad about the boy. I'm so ashamed of it, but must admit the sleepless nights I've had about the boy. On the silver screen, he melts my foolish heart in every single scene. Although I'm well aware that here and there are traces of the care about the boy. Lord knows I'm not a fool girl, I really shouldn't care. Lord knows I'm not a schoolgirl in the flurry of her first affair. Will it ever cloy this odd diversity of misery and joy? I'm feeling quite insane and young again, and all because I'm mad about the boy. Mad about the boy. It's pretty funny, but I'm mad about the boy. He has a gay appeal that makes me feel as maybe something sad about the boy. Walking down the street, his eyes look out at me from people that I meet. I can't believe it's true, but when I'm blue, in some strange way, I'm glad about the boy. I'm heartless and sentimental, love isn't so sublime. I have to pay my rental and I can't afford to waste much time. If I could employ a little magic that would finally destroy this dream that pains me and enchains me, but I can't because I'm mad.
Hi, this is George Bettinger. Join me for the Mom and Pop Shop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on Dream Stream Radio.
I need somebody.
You gotta help me out, see? You just gotta help me out. Oh, my wife thinks she's a train. Well, why don't you take it to the psychiatrist? How do you expect me to get to work in the morning? Hey, come on, Bertha. All aboard. Take the last train to Pottsville and I'll meet you at the station.
The Monkees? Wait a minute, that's been done already. All right, come on, guys. He's not into it. He says it's been done already. Hey, wait a second. Wait. Hold on there. Well, that's my chandelier. Oh, don't mess that up. You're ruining the whole shop.
Let me in. Woo!
Something's at the door.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Stop horsing around. Yeah, but quit horsing around, will you? Oh, boy.
Can't see the dancing.
Let's dance.
Oh, you gonna be good for a quarter? Why would you be like me and be good for nothing?
The Mom and Pop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on Dream Radio.
Next week, we are going to do Burlesque. Quinn Lemley's hit show Burlesque to Broadway. She delivers the goods. Has been reviewed by Vanity Fair. A lot of different raves about it. She's on Facebook, Burlesque to Broadway. She's an entertainer. She's going to join us and talk about her show and she has a site called burlesque-to-broadway.com. So she's going to be our guest next week. So I hope you guys all enjoyed the show, and if you're in the New York area, jump on it and get those tickets, and I love you all. God bless you all.
Where over the rainbow birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why,
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. And God bless you and yours.
Theater, and they're such wonderful actors to spend the time with. It's just I come back very happy because of their, the energy and the company, and they're talented and bright, and it's nice to spend your day with people you like and who are creative.
Okay, so now that we've opened the box and Mad About the Boy, let me ask, how does something like this, I know nothing about acting. I took music, but I didn't get into the acting with the grease and all that. How does something like this get from, I want to do a Mad About the Boy. How do you get it from paper to a playhouse?
It's a big question. I'll tell you something funny. One time I was out, I took a bunch of my friends out, and we were out swimming and having a day in the summer, and these were creative people. One was complaining he writes songs and no one was ever going to hear his songs because he couldn't get a producer to showcase him. Another guy was, writing a play, and how would he get it ever produced? And another guy was, wanted his choreography to be shown off, and a gal was saying, she'd love to have her singing showcased, whatever. They're all grumbling how hard it is to be seen any place. And this is some years back, and I was at the time writing for the New York Post, and I had saved up some money, and I said, listen, I'm going to run a theater festival just so my friends can get exposure, and I'll rent some theaters on 42nd Street. I'll find a way so that whatever you do, if you're a comedian, I'll give you maybe 4 nights or 6 nights, and you can either do stand-up comedy or write a comedy and have actors in it, whatever you want. And I'll give you a night to showcase your choreography and give you a run to showcase this play you're writing on your songs. And I said, if I lose money, it's okay. It's I have some money saved up, and I'll just run this theater festival for my friends. And we put together a schedule with about 25
through desert sand to Arab land, under that mellow Arabian moon, with an Arab maid in the desert shade, humming a sweet Arabian tune, Turkish melodies floating on the breeze, holding someone by the hand in that far-off desert land. Let me tell you, that's the way to spoon. Just get an Arab sweetheart under that mellow Arabian moon. Say some pretty things to your wanderings, where cold December seems like June. You will be content in the Orient. You'll find lots of pleasure there, love and music in the air, under that mellow Arabian moon.
I am over the moon tonight because that was the mellow Arabian moon, under the mellow Arabian moon, chipdeffaasmadabouttheboy Theater Boys. I think I said everybody that was singing in it: David Cronin, Cody Derricks, Jonah May, Keith Anderson, and Ricky Schroeder, right?
Right.
And we were talking in the beginning, everybody, I want you to meet Chip Deffaas. Chip, this is everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Thank you. I do this like we're sitting at the kitchen table. I am drinking my cup of tea, and you're drinking whatever you'll have. And yes, and relaxed. And when you're talking about something you really enjoy, the time just flies. And I asked you during the while I was playing that song, who did Carol Channing's voice? And you said, go ahead.
Oh, well, on the Theater Boys cast album and in our show, we were lucky to have a little cameo appearance, a recorded appearance by Carol Channing herself. She's the greatest, musical comedy star I've ever seen on stage, or as great as anyone I've seen on stage. And she did us this kindness of recording a few lines, which we used on the album and in the show, and it meant more to us than I can explain. And
I'm sure.
She actually gave me the idea for that show. She planned. I mean, not intentionally. Some things she just said to me in conversation. She's been like a wonderful friend and taught me a lot. And some things she told me actually inspired me to write that show. So she became part of the storyline.
Yeah, you absolutely. It's charming, the song, and I love the way she does that little cameo in there. I've had people from the theater industry on, but you are so much more than that. You're a playwright. You do so much more. You're an author. But it's a hard way to make a living. And what made you go this way into theater and the arts the way you have?
Oh, I don't know. My dad's always sort of said, follow your heart and the money's going to find you, and do the things you love. I think he worked very hard all his life. He's up in his 90s now, and he stressed as we grew up, you got to find something you love and think about following the things you love as an individual more than worrying about what's going to bring in the money. And so these are all labors of love, whether I'm writing a play or writing a book or writing for a newspaper or producing an album. I've done cast albums for maybe a bunch of these shows that I've produced, and it's all great fun. And I wrote for the New York Post for 18 years, covering entertainment, jazz and cabaret and theater, and it's all good stuff.
The old saying, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, it feels like that, yes.
Yeah.
Today I spent the day rehearsing with such a wonderful cast of people. We're going to do a show, Mad About the Boy, is going to open April 12th at the 13th Street.
My heart's in Arabia tonight, where stars shine bright on desert sand, where the moon sends blessings with its light from far above, oh land of love.
Under the mellow Arabian moon, with an Arab maid in the desert shade, humming a sweet Arabian tune, Turkish melodies floating on the breeze, holding someone by the hand in that far-off desert land. Let me tell you, that's the way to spoon. Just get an Arab sweetheart under the mellow Arabian moon. Tell her pretty things to your wanderings, where cold December seems like June. You will be content in the Orient, you'll find lots of pleasure there. Love and music in the air under the mellow Arabian moon.
Wait, stop the music, stop the music. I'm not sure I like these costumes. I happen to be of Arabic descent. I really am, and I cannot support a scene that perpetuates inaccurate, outdated Arabic stereotypes.
I don't like these costumes either.
You do not want to take part in a scene that deals in stereotypes.
Well, my thoughts weren't quite so complex. It just occurred to me we were wearing sheets. And I couldn't help remembering there were times when I was up in Danny's bedroom, and it seems to me that sometimes on his bed, Danny had sheets.
The memories, the associations, the reminders must be all so hard to bear.
Mr. Director, must we wear these costumes?
A good director listens to his actors.
Do you really think we're going to have a good show?
It's in the air, it's in the air. You can't stop it if it's in the air.
When the oriole high in the trees goes to its nest in search of rest, then my fancy journeys o'er the seas.
The opinions expressed by the host, callers, or guests are not those of DreamStreamRadio.com, JAL Media, its advertisers, sponsors, employees, volunteers, or affiliated companies. All content is owned by the presenter of each program and are bound by certain rules and regulations set forth by DreamStream Radio. Any contest aired on any program broadcast on DreamStream Radio are encompassed by the following rules. One winner per family per household. Employees and their immediate family members, volunteers, advertisers, or affiliated companies are not eligible to play or win. Participants are entitled to one prize every 30 days and agree to allow their voice and likeness to be used in any means of transmission for later station promotional broadcast. DreamStreamRadio.com.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Welcome to Mobanshi's Lair, rocking your world on DreamStreamRadio.com.
I want you all to listen to. I want to open it up, and this is I thought this was a cute little song, Under the Mellow Arabian Moon, with David Cronin, Cody Derricks, Jonah Mayer, Keith Anderson, and I think it's Ricky Schroeder. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy listening to it, okay?
Gentlemen, I'm going to give the audience a show that's topical, that's relevant, that's of the moment. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go! As my good friend Carol Channing once told me,
be careful what you set your heart upon, because you shall surely get it.
sometimes life hands you exactly what you want.